WION World is one has been reporting non-stop from the United Nations headquarters with reports reflecting both sides on the ground. And we're now being joined by our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, who has been getting us non-stop reporting live straight from New York. And he joins us on this broadcast live as well. Siddhant, that is a precise, stern response. Siddhant, if you can hear us, I'm afraid I don't think Siddhant can hear us, but we have Mr. Pramitpal Chaudhary, a senior journalist, now joining us on the phone line with us. Mr. Pramitpal Chaudhary, how would you rate that response from India? It was precise and to the point and the perfect rebuttal to that hate rant.
Played off against Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech at the UNGA, where Modi never referred to Kashmir or Pakistan at all, right? He made zero reference. But of course, we had to respond to Imran's statement, so we put all of that in the right of reply. And so the attack on Pakistan, the reminder to the world about Pakistan's incredibly dismal human rights and terrorism record, Modi carefully made sure that he was above the fray on this and basically positioned India as a responsible, helpful player in the multilateral sphere. But in the right of reply, you could see that we basically then hit out at Pakistan and make that reminder, as I said, of all of the ills of Pakistani society, government, and its own policies regarding terrorism. So I think it was a perfect, perfect yin and yang combination, if you wish. And in the right of reply, we effectively get everything that we needed to do to respond directly to Imran Khan's charges.
Pramitpal Chaudhary, our senior journalist, please stay with us, sir. We have our correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, now joining us live straight from New York, from outside the United Nations headquarters. Siddhant Sibal, that response from India, in a sense, put it in a nutshell. India's campaign this year at the UNGA, from the way Prime Minister Modi began it, this was the perfect way to end it.
Well, talking about what the Indian Prime Minister said, what was the right of reply, the focus clearly was India is trying to de-link Pakistan. But if Pakistan provokes, India will not shy away from telling what Pakistan is all about. Well, Pakistan is all about terrorism. Pakistan is a country that uses terrorism as an alternative foreign policy. In fact, the Indian side, the Indian diplomats played a masterstroke by referring Imran Khan by his full name, Imran Khan Niazi. Well, Niazi was a man who led the defeat, who was the person who signed Pakistan's defeat in 1971 when Pakistan broke away and the East Pakistan became Bangladesh. That picture is very well known across the world, especially in the Indian subcontinent. So the Niazi name has another meaning as well. It means a person who betrays, a person who can have double standards. And Imran Khan definitely doesn't like using this name Niazi. And his political opponents in Pakistan usually to trouble him or to in a sense grab headlines, call him Imran Khan Niazi. And today, by using the name, India has made it more popular in a sense. Now people will refer him as Imran Khan Niazi much more across the Indian subcontinent. But also India asked many questions. India basically asked 5 questions. One of the most important of this question was that will Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan deny that he has been lauding Osama bin Laden, the person who was responsible for 9/11 in this city, in the city of New York. That's another masterstroke by the Indian diplomats here in the Indian mission in United Nations. So clearly India was ready, and India's reply is a strong reply, even though the Indian Prime Minister did not mention Pakistan by a single word directly or indirectly in his 17-minute speech, in which he focused on development, on partnership and peace.
Siddhant Sibal, our principal diplomatic correspondent, who's been joining us with non-stop live reportage from the United Nations, getting us that live report from outside the United Nations headquarters. Siddhant, stay with us. We still have Mr. Pramitpal Chaudhary, senior journalist, joining us on the phone line. We also have Mr. Anil Trigunayat, former Indian envoy, now joining us on the phone line. Mr. Trigunayat, I'm just coming to you. But before that, Pramitpal Chaudhary, there's also this reference to Niazi that our correspondent is talking about, which is incisive, the way this reply from the Indian contingent came.
Yeah, well, I think as your correspondents mentioned, that was a mild attempt at irritating Imran Khan, but it was also an attempt to link that name with 1971 and the brutality and the surrender of the Pakistani army that 1971 is associated with. But that, I think, is something more for the Pakistani audience, as I'm sure the international audience would not necessarily have picked that up. But yes, I think overall it was a very strong, as has been mentioned, a very strong response designed to highlight the hypocrisy of Pakistan's position. And keep in mind, this ineffectively will bookmark the end of the diplomatic battle in the United Nations over what the amendments to Article 370 and the shift in India's Kashmir policy. So you've ended it on, should we say, an extremely strong note. And I think what we will see that the international community, in fact, all the indications are that what India is trying to do, which is to say that when it comes to what India has done in Indian Kashmir, the rest of the world has nothing to be worried about or nothing to do, no concerns about it. It is not an international, it is no longer even a bilateral issue. And I think this is essentially why Modi decided, I'm not going to mention Pakistan or Kashmir whatsoever on the international scene, and let a diplomat handle the response.
Mr. Pramit Chaudhary, senior journalist, joining us. Thank you so much for being with us on this broadcast. Now we're being joined by Mr. Anil Trigunayat, former Indian envoy. We're also being joined by Ms. Bhashmati Mukherjee, former Indian envoy. Two former Indian envoys on this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with Mr. Trigunayat. Mr. Anil Trigunayat, how would you rate this response from India after the Pakistani Prime Minister's speech?
I think this was an absolutely fitting response. And as has been mentioned already yesterday, Prime Minister Modi, in keeping with what he has been doing all along, that at the highest level we ignore Pakistan, we would not engage with them, and that has been continuing, and that was the master stroke of thoughts. We said what we are good at, what we are achieving, what are our vision for the global and India, and therefore all that was very well appreciated. Now, in the right of reply, we have maintained in the last few times that at a junior level, we will field our diplomats to give a right of reply, which could be very, very caustic, which could be straight, which would be extremely critical, and put them on the mat. And that's precisely what our right to reply gave. Secondly, it also, while they were talking, the Pakistani Prime Minister has already at the Council of Foreign Relations admitted, if you remember his speech there he has said that Pakistani army had trained Al-Qaeda, he trained others, various terrorists, and they have also requested just 2 days ago for maintenance allowance for Hafiz Saeed and all that. So therefore, just putting them on the map that 130 odd terrorist groups that have been sent against India by them and have been fielded, have been funded, have been fed by Pakistanis, and therefore the Pakistan absolutely has no right. They have been on the mat. Unfortunately, but the thing is that the Pakistan is today cannot talk of anything else except Kashmir, and where they have absolutely no right. And that is what precisely the Indian side has conveyed, and very forcefully decimated all the unnecessary blabber that Pakistani Prime Minister indulged in at the UNGA, and missed a great opportunity of addressing the core concern, and that is handling terrorism.
Right. Ms. Bhashmati Mukherjee, I want to come to you on that. India is addressing certain core concerns that India as a country faces, and that is common with the entire world. But what Pakistan did with a dais, with an international platform like the UNGA, was the exact opposite of it, because this concerned only Pakistan and proving that what Pakistan's point of view is the right point of view.
I think, first of all, it is important to understand that we exercised our right of reply at a middle officer level to the Pakistani Prime Minister. That is a very important diplomatic way of conveying what we feel about Imran Khan's speech. That's the first point. The second is that in our right of reply, we demonstrated to the international community that what the General Assembly requires from heads of state and government is a reaching out on issues which concern the international community. And what Imran Khan did was a hate-filled rant which was threatening destruction and nuclear war, which is totally against the spirit of the United Nations. The third important point which was conveyed by India, apart from the rebuttal which was made on all the other issues, was the fact that Imran Khan has himself requested the UN to come and inspect whether Pakistan has any terrorist groups operating from its soil or not. It was most important for India, which we did, to take up Pakistan on this offer and to say that we look forward and that we will also give our contribution on what they should look at. And as a last point, I would like to add that our diplomat, who was actually gave an excellent rebuttal, also pointed out that India does not need Pakistan to tell us what to do, because Pakistan has so many things which it needs to clean up for itself. So it should actually clean up its own mess before trying to focus on India. So on the whole, it was an excellent right of reply. I do believe that this right of reply will not be shown on Pakistani media. However, I'm sure all of you will put it on YouTube, etc., because it is important for Pakistani citizens to understand India's response, which also reflects the international response, given the fact that the US yesterday had said that it is, while it is looking at the treatment of Muslims worldwide, it cannot understand why Pakistan does not talk about the treatment of Muslims in China. So, that is again something which is not going to be reported in the Pakistani media, but which will be taken up in YouTube and on social media. And I hope you all will do the same, so that Pakistani citizens understand what we have said to Imran Khan.
Well, absolutely. Bashwati Mukherjee, former Indian envoy, joining us. Ma'am, if I can just ask you another question. You were talking about the fact that this India exercising the right of reply, and the officer being the one giving the response to the Prime Minister's speech also sends a huge message to the global community about how India, acts as a part of the United Nations, as a part of the global community, by following decorum, by respecting the platform that it is.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, normally when a Prime Minister or Head of State speaks, no right of reply is usually exercised, because the Prime Minister or Head of State is supposed to speak about issues which are of concern to the world, to the international community. It is not supposed to be a forum for airing of bilateral views. So the right of reply is usually never exercised, also out of courtesy and out of concern for bilateral relations. When a Prime Minister, like Imran Khan did, speaks, rants and raves for 50 minutes and 20 seconds, I'm told, as he did yesterday, in a hate-filled speech, the right of reply, which is exercised by the aggrieved country, that's India, is exercised by a much lower level officer to show contempt for the speech, to show contempt for the content of the speech, and to demonstrate that we as India, we have a different message for the world. We don't need Pakistan to give us any lessons. And in fact, I recall that when I was an officer serving in New York, one of the right of replies made by a very senior diplomat at that time quoted from the Old Testament and said, "Oh brother, why lookest thou at the mole in mine eye, and lookest not thou at the mote in thine own eye?" Which I thought was an excellent way of telling Pakistan that please set your own house in order before trying to look at your brother's backyard. So that I think is what the young diplomat from New York, I'm very proud of her. That's what she so ably did today, and I think it was an excellent right of reply. It really conveyed India's civilizational ethos and our standing in the United Nations.
India's civilization and ethos and our standing at the United Nations is the word coming in from Bashwati Mukherjee, former Indian envoy. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast, even as we continue to track this important story, India exercising the right of reply at the United Nations and responding to Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech. We will be tracking that story and continue to track that in our further broadcasts as well. For now, we've completely run out of time here on this edition of WION USA Direct. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.